The message came from space on a Tuesday morning. Admiral Richard Hayes was drinking coffee in his office when the communications officer rushed in with a data pad. The symbols on the screen were not human. They had been translated by the computers into English. "They want to meet us," the officer said. His hands were shaking. Richard read the message 3 times. An organization called the Galactic Council was inviting Earth to visit their station. They wanted to see if humans were good enough to join them. The message was polite but cold. It reminded Richard of a job interview, not a friendly hello. President Catherine Wells called a meeting in Washington. Scientists, military leaders, and diplomats argued for 2 days. Some people said Earth should ignore the message. The council sounded arrogant. Other people said this was the moment humanity had waited for since ancient times. They had to go. Richard understood both sides. He had spent his whole life in the military, protecting Earth from asteroids and space debris. Now someone was offering Earth a place in a bigger community. But the tone of the message bothered him. It felt like the council was doing Earth a favor, not offering real friendship. In the end, they decided to go. Earth would send 4 people. Richard would lead the group because he commanded the defense fleet. Dr. Claire Morrison would go because she studied alien life, even though Earth had never found any until now. Gregory Pierce was a diplomat who spoke 6 languages and never lost his temper. Linda Carter was an engineer who could fix anything and understood every ship system. They would take a ship called Pathfinder. It was the best vessel Earth had ever built. Sleek and fast with fusion engines and quantum computers, Richard felt proud every time he saw it. The journey took 6 weeks. The council had sent coordinates for something called a jump gate. It bent space and let ships travel incredible distances. Human scientists had theories about this technology, but had never built one. Using the council's gate felt strange, like asking for directions in an unfamiliar city. When they arrived at Unity Prime, Richard forgot to breathe for a moment. The station was enormous. It looked like a wheel spinning slowly in space, covered in lights and strange metals. Hundreds of ships floated nearby. Each one looked different. Some were elegant and smooth. Others were brutal and covered in weapons. Richard realized he was looking at vessels from dozens of alien species. A small shuttle came to escort them inside. The pilot was a floating blob of blue gel inside a transparent suit. It did not speak, but lights on its suit formed words that appeared on their screens. "Follow me." The corridors inside Unity Prime were made of crystal that glowed softly. Richard saw other aliens walking past. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange he could not understand how they moved or saw or breathed. One creature seemed to be made of rocks held together by nothing. Another was just a cloud of colored smoke. They reached a massive circular room. The ceiling stretched up so high Richard could barely see it. Rising platforms filled the space, arranged in rings. On each platform sat a different alien species. Richard counted 47 different kinds of creatures. At the center, on the highest platform, 3 aliens sat on large chairs. They were obviously the leaders. The first leader looked like a giant insect with 4 arms and huge faceted eyes. The second was a ball of light contained in a decorative jar. The third was a reptile, bigger than a human, with yellow eyes and scales that shimmered green and gold. A voice came from speakers around the room. "Welcome, humans. I am Director Zephyr of the Krell. This is Director Moros of the Venthi, and this is Patriarch Kelvin of the Theros. We are the Council leadership. You stand before 47 member species of the Galactic Council. We will now evaluate your species for membership." Richard stepped forward. He had prepared a speech about Earth's history and hopes. But something about the room made him hesitate. The aliens were not looking at him with curiosity or welcome. They looked bored. "Thank you for inviting us," Richard said simply. "We're honored to be here." Director Zephyr's insect mouth moved in a way that might have been a smile. "Let us begin. Tell us about your military strength." Richard described Earth's defense fleet, 30 cruisers that could travel between planets, 100 smaller patrol ships, weapons designed to destroy asteroids and defend against impacts. He tried to make it sound impressive. One alien in the lower rows started making a bubbling sound. Lights on a translation device spelled out the word laughing. The alien's body pulsed with colors. 30 ships, the alien said. "My species has 1 dreadnought with more power than your entire fleet." Other aliens made sounds. The translator showed words like primitive and weak and amusing. Richard felt Claire stiffen beside him. He kept his face calm. Gregory Pierce spoke next, describing Earth's governments. He explained how different nations worked together, how people voted for their leaders, how laws were made through discussion and compromise. A creature with too many legs waved a claw dismissively. Chaos. You let uneducated masses make decisions? How inefficient. More sounds of amusement echoed through the chamber. Linda Carter presented Earth's technology, fusion reactors that powered cities, quantum computers that solved complex problems, medical advances that had doubled human lifespans, ships that could reach the outer planets in weeks. The ball of light called Director Moros interrupted her. Elementary achievements. My species mastered these technologies 3,000 years ago. This is basic knowledge, not innovation. Claire could not stay silent anymore. We've only been in space for 200 years. Given our starting point, humanity has accomplished incredible things. Director Zephyr's multiple eyes focused on her. Your starting point was a backward planet in an unremarkable corner of space. That is not a circumstance. That is a limitation of your species. We overcame those limitations, Claire said firmly. Patriarch Kelvin leaned forward. His voice was deep and harsh. Did you? Tell me, what makes humanity special? What do you offer the Council? Why should we accept you? Richard felt anger rising in his chest but pushed it down. We offer our perspective, our creativity, our determination to explore and learn. Perspective? Kelvin made a hissing sound that might have been laughter. You have existed as a spacefaring species for a moment. Your creativity is copying what others invented millennia ago. The Council is 12,000 years old. We have seen 1,000 species like yours. Each one thought they were special. The room fell completely silent. Richard looked at the alien leaders, then at the dozens of species watching from their platforms. Some looked sympathetic. Most looked indifferent or amused. Then perhaps, Richard said quietly, the question is not what we offer you. Perhaps the question is whether this Council offers anything to us. The chamber erupted in noise. Dozens of aliens began vocalizing at once. The translators could not keep up. Words flashed across screens too fast to read. Director Morris blazed brightly. You question the Council? I question the value, Richard said, of joining an organization that invited us here only to insult us. Director Zephyr raised one of his forearms. Instant silence fell. You misunderstand, Admiral. This is not an insult. This is reality. The galaxy is vast and dangerous. Humanity is young and weak. We offer you membership not because you earned it, but because we are generous. Richard met the alien's gaze. I see. The session ended shortly after. The humans were escorted to guest quarters deep inside the station. As they walked through the crystal corridors, none of them spoke. But Richard could feel the anger radiating from his team. They had come in hope and been met with contempt. Tomorrow, the Council would deliver their decision. Richard wondered what choice humanity would make in response. He had a feeling Earth's answer would surprise them. Part 2. The guest quarters were nice but strange. The furniture was the wrong size for humans. The beds were too hard. The lights had a yellow tint that made everything look slightly wrong. The air smelled like metal and something sweet that Richard could not identify. Gregory Pierce sat on one of the odd chairs and put his head in his hands. That was a disaster. They've already decided. We're just here so they can feel good about themselves. Linda Carter was looking at her tablet, scrolling through information. Did you notice the species in the back rows? They didn't say anything. They just watched. Claire stood by the window, staring out at the stars and the ships floating around the station. Those are the minor members. I read about them in the briefing files. The Council calls them probationary species. They have limited rights. They can't vote on important matters. They can't access most technology. Basically, they work for the Council and hope to become full members someday. Richard crossed his arms. How many probationary species are there? 17, Linda said, still reading her tablet. Some have been probationary for 30 years or more. The terms never seem to change. So they're not looking for members, Richard said. They're looking for servants. Gregory stood up and started pacing. We don't know that for sure. Maybe this is just their process. Maybe they test everyone this way to see if they're serious. Claire turned from the window. Did you see their faces when Linda talked about our achievements? They weren't impressed. They were worried. Worried about what? Gregory asked. Linda looked up from her tablet. About how fast we advanced. Think about it. Humanity went from propeller planes to fusion-powered starships in less than 300 years. Most council species took thousands of years to reach the same level. We're not primitive. We're accelerating, Richard nodded slowly. And if they give us access to their databases and technology, we'll catch up even faster. Maybe pass them, so what do we do? Gregory asked. We came all this way. Earth is waiting for our report. People are excited about joining the galactic community. Richard walked to the window and stood beside Claire. Outside, ships came and went from the station. Some were massive cargo vessels. Others were sleek warships bristling with weapons. They all looked more advanced than anything Earth had built. We wait for their decision, Richard said. Then we make ours. That night none of them slept well. Richard lay in the uncomfortable bed thinking about Earth. He thought about his daughter who was studying engineering at university. She had been so excited when she heard he was going to meet aliens. He thought about his late wife who had always believed humanity would find others in the stars. She would have been disappointed by today. Morning came too quickly. The crystal corridors somehow knew when to brighten, mimicking a sunrise. Guards came to escort them back to the council chamber. The guards were robots, sleek machines that moved with disturbing grace. They did not speak. The amphitheater was full again. All 47 species were present. The 3 directors sat on their high platform, looking down at the humans. Director Zephyr spoke first. His insect voice was translated into flat, emotionless words. The council has deliberated. We reviewed your history, your capabilities, and your potential. We have reached a unanimous decision. Richard stood straight. His team stood behind him. He could feel their tension. Humanity will be granted probationary membership in the Galactic Council. Full membership will be reconsidered in 50 years. During this probationary period, Earth will contribute to Council operations. Your fleet will be integrated into our defense forces. Your industrial facilities will follow Council economic directives. Your scientific discoveries will be shared with Council research divisions. Director Zephyr paused. Richard felt his stomach tighten. In return, the Council will provide limited access to our navigation charts. You will receive Grade 3 technology licenses. You will have protection under Council law. Linda leaned close to Richard and whispered, Grade 3 licenses are worse than what we already have. Director Moros continued, his light pulsing with each word. Additionally, Earth will accept Council observers. These observers will ensure you follow Council standards. You will need Council approval before expanding to new star systems. Your military ships must use Council-approved designs only. Patriarch Kelvin finished the announcement. These terms are standard for all probationary members. They are not negotiable. You have 1 day to give us your answer. The 3 directors stood. The session was clearly over. They expected the humans to leave, think about it, and come back tomorrow to accept. No, Richard said. The word echoed in the chamber. Slowly, the noise of aliens moving and talking stopped. Everyone turned to look at the humans. No? Director Zephyr repeated. His tone suggested he had misheard. We don't need a day, Richard said clearly. Our answer is no. The chamber exploded with noise. 47 species all started making sounds at once. The translators could not keep up. Words flashed and disappeared on screens. Richard caught fragments. Impossible. Arrogance. Foolish. Unprecedented. Director Zephyr made a sharp clicking sound with his mandibles. Silence fell instantly. You refuse the Council's offer? I refuse servitude pretending to be partnership, Richard said. You're offering us nothing we don't already have. In exchange, you want us to give up our freedom. Patriarch Kelvin's yellow eyes narrowed. You overestimate your position, human. Without Council protection, Earth is vulnerable. There are species in this galaxy who would strip your planet bare for resources. Then, we'll defend ourselves, Richard said. The alien that had laughed at Earth's fleet yesterday pulsed with amused colors again. With 30 ships? Against fleets of thousands? If necessary. Director Moros flared bright, almost painfully so. This is madness. You are one species against an entire galaxy. The Council controls 300,000 star systems. We command fleets that could destroy your sun. You have no allies, no resources, no hope of surviving without our protection. Claire stepped forward. We survived 200 years without knowing you existed. We'll manage. You will be isolated, Director Zephyr said. It sounded like a threat. No Council species will trade with you. No technology will be shared. You will be completely alone. Richard met the alien's multifaceted gaze. "We've been alone since the first human looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. We're used to it." Gregory Pierce moved closer to Richard. "Admiral, maybe we should discuss this privately before—" "There's nothing to discuss," Richard said firmly. "These terms are unacceptable to any free people. Earth didn't send us here to trade our liberty for scraps from your table." Patriarch Kelvin rose to his full height. He was impressive, towering, and powerful-looking. His scales gleamed under the lights. "You make a grave mistake, Admiral. The Council does not forget insults. Do not expect a second invitation." "We won't," Richard assured him. He turned to his team. "We're leaving." They walked toward the exit. Behind them, the council chamber erupted in furious debate. Dozens of voices rose in pitch and volume. Richard did not look back. "Humans, please wait." The voice was soft, almost lost in the noise. A figure hurried down from the back rows. She looked almost human, but with blue skin and large dark eyes. "I am Envoy Kira of the Solani. May I speak with you for just a moment?" Richard stopped. "You have 1 minute." Kira glanced nervously at the debating council members. "My people have been probationary members for 30 years. The terms never improve. The restrictions never lift. We serve but never advance. I wanted you to know that what you did today gave me hope. Maybe one day my people will find the same courage." Claire placed a hand gently on Kira's shoulder. "Maybe one day you won't need courage. You'll just need a destination." They left Kira standing in the corridor and walked to the docking bay. Pathfinder waited for them, clean and ready. Security drones hovered nearby, their weapons inactive but visible. Richard wondered if the council would try to stop them from leaving. Linda ran through the pre-flight sequence quickly. "They could lock us in, shut down our engines, trap us here." "They could," Richard agreed as he sat in the command chair. "But they won't. They're too arrogant to believe we matter." The ship's engines hummed to life. The docking clamps released with a metallic click. Pathfinder backed away from Unity Prime slowly, then turned toward the jump gate. As they accelerated away, Richard looked at the massive station shrinking behind them. He thought about the council's laughter and contempt. He thought about their insulting offer. And he thought about Kira's eyes, filled with hope and trapped helplessness. "Set course for Earth," he said quietly. Behind them, 3 other ships detached from Unity Prime. Ships belonging to probationary species. They slipped away quietly while the council was still arguing. Nobody noticed them leave. The jump gate activated, bending space around Pathfinder. In a flash of light, they were gone. The council continued their debate for hours. They never realized that everything had just changed. Part 3, the journey home, took 6 weeks. Richard spent most of that time writing reports and preparing for the questions he knew were coming. President Wells would want to know everything. So would the media. So would every person on Earth who had been excited about joining the galactic community. Claire and Linda spent their time analyzing every scan they had taken of Unity Prime and the alien ships. Gregory practiced explaining the situation in ways that would not cause panic. They all knew their decision would be controversial. When Pathfinder finally entered Earth's solar system, Richard felt relief wash over him. The moon looked beautiful. Earth looked like home. Mars colonies twinkled with lights on the dark side of the red planet. Everything was exactly as they had left it. Earth defense ships came out to escort them in. The fleet looked small and fragile compared to what they had seen at Unity Prime, but they were human ships, built by human hands, crewed by people Richard had trained with. That meant something. President Wells was waiting at the landing facility. She was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had been a general before becoming president. Richard respected her. "Welcome home, Admiral," she said as he descended the ramp. "I trust you have an interesting story to tell." "You could say that, ma'am." The debriefing lasted 3 days. Richard and his team sat in a secure conference room with the president, military leaders, scientists, and diplomats. They showed videos of Unity Prime and the council session. They played recordings of the alien voices in their translated words. They explained every detail of the insulting offer. Some people in the room were angry that Richard had refused without consulting Earth first. Others agreed with his decision. Everyone agreed the situation was bad, so what now? President Wells asked on the 3rd day. The council made it clear we're on our own. No allies, no technology sharing, no trade. We're isolated. Richard stood and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the capital city stretching toward the horizon. Millions of people going about their lives unaware of how much had changed. With respect, ma'am, we've always been isolated. We just didn't know anyone else existed. Now we do, but our situation hasn't really changed. Except now we have enemies, a general pointed out, do we? Claire asked. The council threatened us, but they can't actually do anything. We refused membership. By their own laws, they have no authority over us. Linda pulled up a star chart. The council controls 300,000 systems. That sounds impressive until you realize the galaxy contains 400 billion stars. They control less than 1% of explored space. There's a lot of galaxy out there they don't touch. Because it's too far away or too dangerous or not worth the effort, Gregory added. But for us, those unclaimed systems represent opportunity. President Wells leaned back in her chair. You want us to expand into unclaimed space?
Why not?
Richard said. We have faster-than-light capability. We have fusion power. We have manufacturing. We don't need the Council's permission to explore. We also don't have their protection, the general said. What if hostile species attack us? Then we defend ourselves, Richard said. Like we've been preparing to do for 200 years. President Wells was quiet for a long moment. What you're suggesting is ambitious and risky. If we antagonize the Council, they could decide we're a threat. They already think we're nothing, Claire said. Let them keep thinking that while we build something better. The president looked at each member of the team. You all agree with this? They nodded. Then I'll take it to the assembly, but I need to know what you're really proposing. Specifically. Richard had been thinking about this for 6 weeks. We go dark. Full communications silence with council space. We pull back our observation posts. We encrypt everything. Let them think we retreated to lick our wounds. And what are we actually doing? Wells asked. Building, Linda said. We send construction fleets to resource-rich systems far from council space. We establish mining operations, manufacturing facilities, shipyards. We expand our fleet. Not 30 ships. 300. 3,000 eventually. That will take decades, the general said. Then we'd better start now, Richard replied. Gregory cleared his throat. There's another element to consider. Those probationary species at the council, they're not happy. We saw it in their faces. Some of them might be interested in alternatives. You want to recruit council members? President Wells looked skeptical. Not recruit. Just make it known that humanity believes in partnerships between equals. That we're building something new. The ones who are interested will find us. President Wells stood and walked to the window beside Richard. This is a gamble. We could end up more isolated than before. Or we could end up at war with the council. Or, Richard said quietly, we could end up building something better than the council. Something based on respect instead of servitude. The president was silent for another long moment. Then she smiled slightly. I became president because I believed humanity's best days were ahead of us, not behind us. If we're going to take risks, we might as well take big ones. I'll present your plan to the assembly tomorrow. The assembly debated for 2 weeks. The vote was close. But eventually humanity made its decision. Earth went dark. All communications channels to council space were shut down. Observation posts were withdrawn. Diplomatic frequencies went silent. From the council's perspective, humanity simply vanished. But in the darkness, humanity was anything but inactive. Construction fleets launched toward distant systems. The ships were filled with mining equipment, manufacturing units, and prefabricated station components. Engineers and workers volunteered in huge numbers. Everyone wanted to be part of building humanity's future. Richard was given command of the expansion operation. He established a base in the first system, a place with 3 rocky planets and an asteroid belt rich in metals. They called it New Hope. Within 3 months, mining operations were extracting resources. Within 6 months, the first shipyard was operational. Within a year, new ships were being built. Not copies of council designs, but human designs, incorporating everything humanity had learned. Claire led the science division. She studied the limited alien technology they had observed and figured out how it worked. Human scientists made breakthroughs every week. Some innovations matched council technology. A few exceeded it. Gregory became humanity's quiet diplomat. He made careful contact with independent traders and explorers, species that operated outside council space. He never mentioned the council or invited anyone to anything. He just talked, made friends, and let people know that humanity valued partnership. Linda oversaw construction of humanity's new ships. They were sleek and fast, with powerful engines and advanced weapons. But they were also beautiful, built with an aesthetic that was purely human. Each ship had windows so the crew could see the stars. Each ship had gardens to grow food and flowers. They were not just war machines. They were homes. After 6 months, something unexpected happened. A small ship arrived at New Hope. It was Solani, the blue-skinned species from Unity Prime. The ship's pilot was Envoy Kira. Richard met her personally at the docking bay. "Envoy Kira, this is a surprise." Kira looked nervous. "I had to be careful. The Council watches probationary species closely. But I had to see if the rumors were true." "What rumors?" "That humanity is building something magnificent in the dark. That you're creating the kind of alliance the Council should have been." Richard smiled. "Would you like to see?" He showed her everything. The shipyards where human engineers worked alongside robots. The mining operations extracting resources from asteroids. The research stations where scientists made discoveries. The growing fleet of ships. The communities of workers and families building lives in this new frontier. Kira's eyes grew wider with each revelation. "This is incredible. You've accomplished in 6 months what takes most species years." "We had motivation," Richard said. "And we had freedom. Amazing what people can do when they're not being held back." Kira was quiet for a moment. "My people are tired of being probationary members. We work for the Council, but they treat us like children. We have resources and knowledge to offer. If we left the Council, would humanity consider an alliance?" "Not an alliance," Richard said. "A partnership. Equal voices. Shared benefits. Mutual respect. That's all we ever wanted," Kira said softly. "Then talk to your people. If they're interested, we're here." Kira left the next day. Richard reported the conversation to President Wells. They both knew this was a critical moment. If the Solani joined humanity, it would prove that the Council's way was not the only way. 2 weeks later, the Solani made their announcement. They were withdrawing from the Galactic Council. They cited irreconcilable differences in philosophy and thanked the Council for the opportunity. 3 days after that, a Solani fleet arrived at New Hope. 50 ships carrying thousands of people, along with technology, resources, and hope. The partnership was formalized in a simple ceremony. No grand speeches, no complex treaties, just 2 species agreeing to work together as equals. Richard watched the Solani ships dock alongside human vessels. He thought about the Council's laughter and contempt. He wondered if they were still laughing now. Somehow he doubted it. Part 4. 6 months after the Solani partnership began, the Council called an emergency session. Director Zephyr was visibly agitated, his mandibles clicking together in a nervous pattern. The amphitheater was full, but there were empty seats in the probationary section. Several species had simply stopped attending. "We face a crisis," Zephyr announced. "The human situation has evolved in unexpected ways." Director Moros pulsed with a troubled light. After departing Unity Prime, the humans went silent. All communication channels closed. Their jump gate signature vanished. "Our scouts report their entire fleet has disappeared from their home system." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Aliens turned to each other, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of confusion. "Disappeared?" Counselor Vex pulsed with uncertain colors. "How does an entire species disappear?" "We don't know," Zephyr admitted. "More troubling is this. 17 probationary species have formally withdrawn their Council membership in the past 3 months. 8 others have filed protests demanding their terms be renegotiated." The chamber erupted in noise. This was unprecedented. The Council had existed for 12,000 years. Species did not simply leave. Patriarch Kelvin rose from his seat, his yellow eyes blazing. "This is sedition. The humans have poisoned the minds of weaker species against us. We must send a fleet to Earth, force them to reveal what they're doing. We've detected no communication between Earth and any probationary species," Zephyr said. "The humans are truly silent. No broadcasts, no messages, nothing. Then how are they influencing others?" Kelvin demanded. Director Moros dimmed thoughtfully. "Perhaps their silence is the influence." "Explain," Zephyr said. "The probationary species watched humanity refuse our terms and depart unharmed. They saw that defiance is possible without consequences. They wonder what humanity discovered in the dark that makes silence preferable to our membership. A junior counselor from the Outer Rim requested permission to speak. Zephyr granted it, though he looked annoyed at the interruption. Directors, I have information that may be relevant. My people operate trade routes near the unclaimed territories. In recent weeks, independent merchants have reported strange sightings. What kind of sightings? Kelvin asked impatiently. Human ships, not explorers or scouts. Construction vessels. Enormous ones. And warships we've never seen before. The chamber fell silent. How many ships? Moros asked quietly. Difficult to say. The merchants who got close enough to observe were escorted away. Politely but firmly. But they estimated dozens at minimum. Another counselor spoke up. My intelligence sources report similar encounters in 3 different sectors. All far from council space. All in systems we deemed too remote or resource poor to be worth claiming. How many construction sites? Zephyr demanded. At least 7 confirmed, possibly 12 or more. The implications settled over the chamber like a heavy blanket. The humans had not retreated in fear. They had not collapsed under isolation. They were building something. Building what? Vex demanded. They have 30 ships and 1 planet. What could they possibly construct that threatens us? Maybe that's not the right question, said a voice from the probationary section. It was Envoy Dran of the Krell. Maybe we should ask why they're building it. The probationary members will remain silent unless recognized, Kelvin snapped. Will we? Dran stood, his crystalline body reflecting the chamber lights. We've been silent for 40 years, silent and obedient. And where has it gotten us? Still probationary, still restricted, still serving while you debate. You are out of order, Kelvin growled. No, Dran said firmly. I am speaking truth. We watched you mock the humans. We watched you offer them the same chains you placed on us, and we watched them walk away with dignity intact. You taught them the council has nothing to offer free peoples. Now they build something in the dark and you're afraid. Afraid? Kelvin laughed harshly. Of humans? They are insignificant. Then why are we here? Dran asked simply. Why an emergency session for a species you claim doesn't matter? No one had an answer. The session ended in confusion and anger. But 3 days later, more news arrived that made everything worse. A human fleet had appeared in the Outer Reach territories. Not 30 ships, but 300. They were offering protection to the independent colonies there, not demanding tribute or allegiance, just offering help to anyone who wanted it. The colonies accepted immediately. They had been raided by pirates for years. The council had ignored their requests for help because the Outer Reach was too far from core territories. But humanity showed up and simply started patrolling the trade routes. Within 2 weeks, pirate attacks stopped completely. 3 pirate bands tried to raid colonies under human protection. Those pirate ships were destroyed so quickly and efficiently that other pirates decided to find easier targets. The colonies sent grateful messages to the human fleet. The human response was broadcast openly. We believe in defending those who cannot defend themselves. No payment necessary, no strings attached, word spread fast. If humanity could project power to the Outer Reach, what else were they capable of? Then came the second blow. The Solani made a formal announcement. They had entered into a full partnership with humanity. Technology sharing, mutual defense, equal decision-making. The announcement included images of joint Solani human facilities, combined fleets, and collaborative research projects. The Council tried to respond. They sent a delegation to Solani space to negotiate their return. The Solani refused to meet with them. We tried negotiation for 30 years, the Solani president said in a public statement. You never listened. Humanity listened. They treated us as equals from the first conversation. We have no interest in returning to servitude. 2 weeks later, the Krell announced they were leaving the Council. Their departure message was brief and pointed. We choose to build rather than serve. More species followed. The Norvani colonies, the Deltari Union, the Prexus Collective. Some joined the Human Alliance immediately. Others simply declared independence and went their own way. The Council watched its carefully constructed empire begin to crack. Director Zephyr called another emergency session. The amphitheater was noticeably emptier. 20 probationary seats were vacant now. Even some full members had stopped attending. We must take action, Kelvin insisted. Send the fleet to human space. Demand they cease their expansion. Threaten war if necessary. On what grounds? Moros asked quietly. They refused membership. They operate in unclaimed space. They have not attacked any council vessels or territories. By our own laws, we have no jurisdiction over them. Then change the laws, Kelvin snarled. To what? Moros challenged. Shall we declare that any species who refuses us is our enemy? Shall we claim all unclaimed space belongs to the council by default? How is that different from conquest? It's maintaining order, Kelvin insisted. It's revealing what we've always been, Moros said softly. An empire that calls itself a council. Conquerors who pretend to be diplomats. Zephyr's mandibles clicked rapidly. This philosophical debate helps nothing. We need practical solutions. There is one solution, a voice said. It was Counselor Thane of the Mordani, a species known for their wisdom and long memories. We could apologize to humanity, offer them real membership, equal standing, acknowledge our mistake. The chamber erupted in outrage. Dozens of species vocalized their anger at the suggestion. The council does not apologize, Kelvin said coldly. We are 12,000 years old. We will outlast this human aberration. But even as he spoke, another message arrived. The Telvanni Confederacy, a full council member, had announced they were leaving to join the Human Alliance. They cited philosophical differences regarding the nature of cooperation. The Telvanni had been council members for 3,000 years. That night, in the empty corridors of Unity Prime, maintenance workers noticed something. The station felt different, quieter, less busy. Ships that usually docked regularly had stopped coming. Diplomats who used to fill the conference rooms were absent. The council had been the center of galactic civilization for 12,000 years. Now, slowly but steadily, that center was shifting. And in the dark between stars, humanity continued building. Not an empire, not a conquest. Just an alternative based on a simple idea, that free peoples working together as equals could accomplish more than subjects serving masters. The council had laughed when humanity departed in silence. Now they were learning that silence could be the loudest message of all. Part 5. 1 year after Pathfinder departed from Unity Prime, Admiral Richard Hayes stood on the observation deck of humanity's first deep space city. The station was called Horizon, and it floated in a system humans had named Liberty. It was enormous, larger than Unity Prime, built in rings that rotated to provide gravity. Through the massive windows, Richard watched construction drones assembling another ring. Lights twinkled from completed sections where thousands of people lived and worked. Ships came and went constantly, human vessels alongside Solani, Krell, Norvani, and dozens of other species. Claire Morrison joined him at the window, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed him one. Still hard to believe sometimes, isn't it? Every day, Richard admitted. A year ago, we had 30 ships and 1 system. Now look at us. 43 species in the Alliance, Claire said. 200 systems, over 500 major ships and thousands of smaller vessels. 27 more species have inquired about membership. And the council? Claire smiled. Silent. Completely silent. They haven't sent a single message to any Alliance member in 3 months. Richard sipped his coffee. It was real coffee grown in Horizon's agricultural rings. Not the synthetic stuff they'd lived on during the early days of expansion. They're learning the lesson they tried to teach us. Which lesson is that? That, in the void of space, sometimes the absence of words speaks loudest. A door opened behind them. Gregory Pierce walked in, looking tired but satisfied. He'd been in negotiations for 3 days with a new species interested in joining the Alliance. The Vorath have agreed to join, he announced. They'll send a delegation next week to formalize the partnership. The Vorath, Richard said thoughtfully. Aren't they from Council Space? They were a full council member for 500 years, Gregory confirmed. They're the 8th full member to leave the council for us. They said the council has become rigid and fearful. Unable to adapt, they see the Alliance as the future. Linda Carter entered next, wiping grease from her hands. She'd been working in the shipyards again. Despite being one of the Alliance's top engineers, she still enjoyed hands-on work. The new cruisers are ready, she announced. 20 ships fresh off the line. Better shields, faster engines, and more efficient weapons than the previous batch. How do they compare to council vessels? Richard asked. Linda grinned. In simulations, our new cruisers outperform council dreadnoughts. Smaller, faster, smarter. And we're building them at a rate of 30 per month now. Claire shook her head in amazement. The council was right about one thing. Humanity does advance fast. But they were wrong about why. What do you mean? Gregory asked. They thought our rapid advancement was a fluke. A lucky accident. They didn't understand that our speed comes from freedom. When people are free to experiment, to fail, to innovate without permission, progress accelerates. The council stifles innovation, Linda agreed. Everything needs approval. Everything follows ancient protocols. They're trapped by their own bureaucracy. A communication alert chimed. Richard walked to a console and accepted the call. President Wells appeared on the screen. Admiral, we have a situation. A council ship just arrived at the edge of Liberty system. It's broadcasting a request to speak with Alliance leadership. Richard felt his team tense behind him. Just one ship? Just one. A small diplomatic vessel. Unarmed, according to our scans. Interesting, what do they want? They won't say. They're asking for a meeting. Your call, Admiral. Richard thought for a moment. Tell them they can come to Horizon. We'll meet them in Conference Room 7. Not the main council chamber? Wells asked. No, we meet them as equals, not as supplicants. Conference Room 7 is where we meet all our partners. Wells nodded approvingly. I'll let them know. Good luck. 2 hours later, Richard and his team sat in Conference Room 7. It was a comfortable space with a large oval table and windows showing the stars. Nothing fancy or intimidating, just a room for conversations. The door opened. 3 aliens entered. Richard recognized 2 of them, Director Moros, the being of light in his ceremonial jar, and Envoy Kira of the Solani, though she was no longer an envoy. She had become the Solani representative to the Alliance Council. The 3rd alien was unfamiliar, a tall being with gray skin and 6 arms. Moros spoke first. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting, Admiral Hayes. You're welcome here, Richard said neutrally. Please sit. They sat. Richard noticed that Moros seemed different, dimmer somehow, less confident. I should introduce my companion, Moros said. This is Councillor Vane of the Hexari. She represents the Reform faction within the Council. Reform faction? Claire asked. Vane spoke. Her voice was surprisingly gentle. There are those within the Council who recognize that our current path is unsustainable. We have lost 47 member species in 1 year. Trade has declined 30%. New species refuse to join us. The Council is dying. I'm sorry to hear that, Richard said, meaning it. But I'm not sure what this has to do with the Alliance. We wish to understand, Moros said. How did you do it? How did you build something in 1 year that rivals what took us 12,000 years to create? Richard leaned back in his chair. You really don't know? We have theories, Vane said, but we need to hear it from you. Richard looked at his team. Claire nodded. Gregory gestured for him to continue. Linda smiled. We didn't build an empire, Richard said simply. We built a community. Every species that joins the Alliance has an equal voice. We make decisions together. We share technology freely. We help each other without demanding tribute or obedience. But how do you maintain order? Vane asked. How do you prevent chaos? Trust people to act in their own best interest, Gregory said. When you treat species as equals, when you respect their autonomy, they cooperate willingly. They don't need to be controlled. But there must be rules, Moros insisted. Standards, protocols. We have guidelines, Claire said. But they're created collaboratively and can be changed if they don't work. The Alliance adapts. It evolves. It learns. The Council cannot learn, Vane said quietly. Its structure prevents it. Changing anything requires unanimous agreement from all remaining members. Getting unanimous agreement is nearly impossible. Then change the structure, Linda suggested. We're trying, Moros said. But it's difficult. Many council members refuse to acknowledge the problem. They believe this is temporary. That species will return when they realize the Council's strength. Will they? Richard asked. Vane and Moros exchanged glances. Moros dimmed further. No, they won't. The species that joined your alliance are thriving. They're happy. They have opportunities they never had under Council membership. Why would they return? So why are you here? Richard asked gently. Richard, to ask for help, Moros admitted. The Reform faction wants to rebuild the Council along Alliance principles. Equal representation, shared decision-making, mutual respect. But we don't know how. You accomplished in 1 year what we cannot figure out after 12,000 years. Richard felt sympathy for these beings. They were trying to change a system that resisted change at every level. I'll be honest with you, Richard said. The Council might be beyond reform. Its foundation is flawed. It was built on hierarchy and control. You can't fix a foundation without rebuilding the entire structure. So what do we do? Vane asked, and Richard heard real desperation in her voice. You could join the Alliance, Claire said. Not as the Council, as individual species. Start fresh. Moros pulsed with an uncertain light. Some of us have considered it, but many Council species are proud. They cannot imagine abandoning 12,000 years of history. Pride is expensive, Gregory observed. Eventually, you have to decide if it's worth the cost. The meeting continued for another hour. Richard and his team answered questions honestly. They explained how the Alliance Council worked, how decisions were made, how conflicts were resolved. They showed Moros and Vane the Alliance Charter, a simple document that emphasized freedom, cooperation, and mutual benefit. When the Council delegation finally left, Richard felt tired but satisfied. Do you think they'll actually reform? Linda asked. Some might, Richard said. Others won't, but it doesn't matter. The galaxy has seen an alternative now. That can't be unseen. What about us? Claire asked. What's next for the Alliance? Richard looked out the window at Horizon Station, at the ships coming and going, at the lights of a community built on hope instead of fear. We keep building, he said. We keep growing. We keep showing the galaxy that there's a better way. Not through conquest or demands, just through example. The Council spent 12,000 years trying to control the galaxy, Gregory said. We've spent 1 year showing them control was never necessary. Do you think they're still laughing at us? Linda asked with a grin. Richard smiled. No, I don't think anyone's laughing now. 3 months later, 5 more Council species joined the Alliance. 2 months after that, Director Moros announced his resignation from the Council and asked to meet with President Wells about Venthi membership in the Alliance. The Council continued to exist, but it was a shadow of what it had been. Unity Prime still floated in space, but the crowds were gone. The grand amphitheater echoed with emptiness, and in the dark between stars, the Alliance continued to grow. Not through force or coercion, but through a simple idea that the